Welcome to DeFi by Design, where we talk all things blockchain and cryptocurrency while striving to educate, empower, and enrich.
What's going on, guys? Real quick break for the DeFi by Design podcast sponsors and the DeFi Slate sponsors who make this all possible. First, we have 𝗷𝗍, a money market protocol that allows you to borrow and lend and leverage your assets to earn interest. So if you want to deposit some stable coins in there, currently you can get 3, 4, 5, 6, 8% APYs on stable coins, which oust any bank in the world. As far as we're concerned, you can deposit any Ethereum-based asset that is listed there, borrow against it. You can borrow stablecoins. You can borrow other assets like ETH or 𝗹𝗶, Link, even the 𝗷𝗍 token itself. 𝗷𝗍 is the go-to protocol for any sort of borrowing and lending. Check it out at app.𝗷𝗍.com. The next one we have is Oxys. Oxys is a new crypto wallet, oxys.com. You can store all of your crypto there. They have quite a few options. They're integrating new DEX features soon and allow you to have a non-custodial way to store your crypto safely off of centralized exchanges and also just not in a MetaMask or in your own ledger. A bit of extra security there. Next, we have 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵. 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 is a decentralized perpetual swap protocol, basically allowing you to trade on leverage on the Ethereum chain, right? They're coming out with V3 very soon. By the time you're listening to this, it might already be out. They are a super solid team, and they're pumping updates and allowing you to trade decentralized perpetual swaps on ETH, Link, and a few others, all on Ethereum, all decentralized. So that is 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵. Next, we have 𝗵𝗶𝗶. 𝗵𝗶𝗶 is a decentralized stablecoin. It's an algorithmic stablecoin that is pegged to the purchasing power of commodities. And basically, it measures what value $1 buys in terms of a commodity index each week. And then it provides you with essentially a store of value that allows you to continuously evade inflation while maintaining, a stable aspect as if it was $1. And that is the 𝗵𝗶𝗶 protocol. Check them out on Twitter. Finally, we have DeFi. It is an L2 decentralized exchange. They allow you to basically trade in a gasless and feeless manner, big volumes, whatever quantities you need. It's almost like a centralized exchange on Ethereum, but you are the custodian. They do not hold your coins as a centralized exchange would. You have full control, full power. So really, it's almost like a centralized exchange capabilities on a decentralized exchange, and that is DeFi. All those sponsors make this possible. I know it's a lot to take in, but thank you very much for listening, and let's get back to it. Welcome to episode 26 of the DeFi by Design podcast. I'll tell you, it's been a week or so since we've recorded a podcast. Might be a little bit rusty today, but as energetic and excited about what's going on in DeFi as ever. I've been listening to quite a few podcasts as of recent. I really think this audio realm of content is going to keep growing. And specifically, I've been listening to a lot of crypto podcasts, and there's been just a lot of names on there, Mark Cuban-esque names and topics that are being talked about. NFTs are on CNBC, and honestly, I would say we're at a phase of adoption, froth, and everything in between. And honestly, it's been absolutely awesome to see. And so we are here today with Andrew from SportX, the absolute man up there in Canada, and Sandeep from Polygon, which is formerly known as 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 or the 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 protocol. Also, of course, Robbie's here. I'll shut up now. Robbie, what's going on? And let's let these beautiful gents introduce themselves.
Happy St. Patty's Day, lads. It's another beautiful day in Florida. We're getting after it. I'm kicking it. Super excited to talk to Sandeep and Andrew all about 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵, formerly known as 𝗵𝗶𝗴, now Polygon, L2 scaling, and bringing more use cases to the Ethereum blockchain. I'm really super hyped to hop on, and I'll go ahead and pass it off to these guys and let them introduce themselves.
Cool. Yeah. So my name's Andrew. I'm the project lead at SportX. SportX is a sports-focused prediction market focused on bringing scaling and prediction market use case to the crypto world. We're built on top of the 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 blockchain, or I guess I should call it Polygon. And our goal is to essentially become the world's first community-owned sports betting exchange.
And I am Sandeep. I am one of the co-founders of Polygon. Previously, it was known as the 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 network. And Polygon is basically kind of a multi-chain Ethereum protocol, which essentially tries to convert Ethereum into a multi-chain protocol, and that those multi-chain protocols might include, standalone chains or layer 2 secured chains. And we'll talk more in detail that what exactly it means for the new vision of Polygon and how it evolved from Matic Network to Polygon.
Right. And I think the process of the rebrand and of this L2 narrative, and there's this really strong push in the community right now for this. I think honestly it can be kind of confusing for people that are even a year or two in the community, let alone 3, 4. So I would love to talk deeply about kind of what layer 2 is, what scaling is, what's going on at Matic, all the types of applications. But I think first, to create a foundation, we should talk about what scaling really even means for blockchains and for networks. Like, what even is scaling of a network, right? So we've got all these nodes, right? All these computers, all these power users and users of effectively smart contracts, which is just code, right? And basically, we're trying to optimize the user experience and the utility of this code and this blockchain for everybody, right? So let's talk about the scaling narrative and kind of what that means on Ethereum. So I guess, you, Sandeep, have a shot at this. What does scaling mean to you, kind of? And, what's like the base level of the why and the what for scaling a blockchain?
Yeah, so let's discuss it as you said right from the start. Especially, let's take it. Let's start it from a layman's perspective, right? So why scaling? Like, why do we even talk about scaling, right? So first, understand why. What is the need of scaling? So think of it like this way, like, that imagine you today interact with, let's say, Bank of America or like, Royal Bank of Scotland or whatever, right? And when you are doing a transaction and you are sending money from, let's say, Bank of America, when whatever you are interacting with, you are actually interacting with the server of Bank of America. Server means like, the application, where the application is hosted, where you are actually interacting with that website. And only Bank of America servers are processing that request, right? So, I mean, they might have some backups and all that, but technically for all these things, there is one entity which is processing whatever computation you are trying to do. You're going to send money, you're logging in, you're doing tons of different kind of stuff, right? So one entity is handling your stuff. With blockchains, the core concept is that you are decentralizing this execution of logic. Like currency transfer is also an execution of logic. A sends to B, A is A plus X, and B is B minus X. So now you can already see that when we are with the blockchains, what we are trying to do is we are decentralizing this execution, right? So when you were sending money to, let's say, your friend, you were doing that computation only once in the Bank of America server, for example, right? But now when you are doing this transaction on Bitcoin, all the nodes who are running the Bitcoin network, they have to execute this computation, right? So let's assume there are 6,000 nodes on Bitcoin. So all 6,000 will be executing your logic, right? Which previously was being executed in one particular server. So that automatically means that here the computation would be definitely costly, because where you were executing it one particular server, now you are executing in 6,000 different servers. So hence blockchains have an inherent problem with the amount of computations they can do, right? And with that, when we say computation, let's move to Ethereum. So Ethereum has been built to, so Bitcoin blockchain only runs one kind of computation, which is the currency computation, like A pays to B, what I just mentioned. But Ethereum is built as a Turing complete computer, meaning it can execute any arbitrary business logic. So, you can already imagine that if, let's say, many businesses wanted to run their applications on Ethereum and then it is being executed on thousands and thousands of nodes, there is definitely there will be definitely a limit on how many computations that you can run. So that's precisely is the scaling issue. And for the people who are more technically oriented, you can also look at like Scalability Trilemma, which was mentioned by Vitalik, which says that out of decentralization, security, and scaling, you can choose only two, right? So Ethereum actually is built as a completely decentralized, blockchain. So hence Ethereum, has chosen decentralization and security, but then, it compromises or trades off between the scalability. So hence, once we realize that, okay, there is a scalability issue on blockchain, now how do you solve it, right? So now there are multiple kinds of efforts into that. So either you can try to solve these scalability issues on the layer 1, that means on the Ethereum itself, and where you see all of these efforts going on, like Ethereum coming up with POS, Ethereum 2.0 efforts and all that. All those efforts are there to scale blockchain, like the layer 1 blockchain, that is Ethereum blockchain, a little bit from its current position. And then the other kind of, and there are multiple other layer 1 protocols also who are trying to build competing blockchains, although we believe that Ethereum's kind of network effects have reached a particular point where it's very, very, very hard for anybody else to compete for those network effects. So second kind of thing, scaling that happens is the layer 2 scaling. That means you run these parallel or kind of over the top chain on top of Ethereum, various different chains which can run on top of Ethereum, and they can derive various aspects of their security, which can be a completely standalone chain which is just connected to Ethereum using some bridges where the currencies can and assets like NFT assets can flow through, or they can be very, very highly and tightly coupled layer 2 executions like ZK rollups or optimistic rollups, which actually commit or put all their data on Ethereum. So that's largely like the landscape, like especially on the layer 1. So to summarize, blockchain is scalability, and you have two different kinds of efforts, layer 1 and layer 2. And yeah,
that was, I mean, you just dropped a brain bomb on all of our listeners. That was a great way to frame the issue, and you took it right from square one, right? Like these are centralized applications. Bank of America, like you said, gets down to the core of there's only one person executing logic, and I think that is really what we have to keep in mind. Blockchain allows us to decentralize that approach. It allows a collaborative effort to execute logic. Let's take the issue that you just framed very, very well, and now start to apply some of the different narratives of solutions to that problem. You mentioned layer 2, on top of Ethereum, and that gets back to the scalability trilemma that you mentioned. We picture this triangle. You can only have two of the three: scalability, decentralization, and security. Like you said, Ethereum has chosen security and decentralization for their blockchain, and then it's the job of these L2s to come in and scale that blockchain. Now, not everyone agrees with that approach, right? There's different narratives that come in and different ways to solve that issue. And one of the other alternatives is proof of stake. Let's open it up now to some of the different L2 options that are being explored now in terms of Polygon, rollups, these different L2 narratives that are circulating around, and people are starting to implement, and then also where Ethereum is going itself as a layer 1 blockchain, and proof of stake.
Thinking of it as like an investor, it's an interesting way to look at it versus a user, right? So as you're saying, there's different L2 options and there's also different L1 options, right? So when we say that L1, we're referring to different chains, like a multi-chain approach, right? So we saw, and we're going to keep seeing, like Alpha Finance today on Binance Smart Chain, right? We've got I think SushiSwap hopped on
SushiSwap also went live on Polygon also.
Yeah, on Polygon. And so, as an investor, you see these, and as a user, you also have a separate experience from the narrative and from what you're actually getting. So I'm going to toss this one out to Andrew. Kind of, what is your view on the L1 versus kind of L2 push when it comes to an investor's perspective or a user's perspective, right? Or both, right? Like what are we looking for as investors to store our value and to appreciate? But, what are we looking for as a user as far as composability and stuff goes?
Yeah, totally. So I think I can't really speak too much from other application developers, but at least for SportX, the reason why we chose Matic and like what we were looking for our scalability solution was essentially something that was EVM compatible because we were initially on Ethereum, and so we wanted to be able to go on chain really fast. And one of the things we looked at actually alternative layer 1 blockchains like Solana, Near Protocol, a bunch of other projects, Cosmos as well. And then we looked at the different kind of layer 2 solutions that were out there at the time. And from doing our due diligence, we kind of came to the realization that Matic was the best one to go for, mainly because I would just say that they were kind of the first to, like, I guess beyond, like, one of the first things we looked at was they were just so ahead of the curve. They've been in production for months now, whereas things like Optimism and other layer 2s are still months away. And then besides that, we also just felt like they just had one of the best teams in the space. So I think, like, from a developer's perspective, you're really looking for, you're kind of making a bet on both the protocol, but also the team behind the protocol that you're going to be living on.
Andrew, you mentioned kind of from the start you were EVM compatible. Could you kind of explore what that approach looked like? You know, kind of how you took what you did from an idea into implementation with, you know, starting out with Solidity and being on the EVM, which is Ethereum Virtual Machine, you know, for our listeners. And then, you know, kind of how that led you to 𝗵𝗡 while you were also considering these different alternatives.
Yeah, totally. That's a good question. So for us, we are actually initially launched on the Ethereum blockchain. And what happened kind of in the summer, the DeFi summer, like, as we all know, is that the Ethereum network became highly congested and gas costs kind of just went through the roof. And so for applications like ours, like prediction markets, which typically have lower average transaction sizes, our use case essentially got priced out by the increase in gas costs. And so we were, to use kind of Sandeep's logic, we were looking for something that was more on the scalability side. And because prediction markets don't rely as much on composability as other applications like lending protocols, it made sense for us to find a solution that was entirely focused on scaling.
And for the users, for sure, without a doubt, that choice was founded upon, okay, we got to get users to have an actual experience on our app, or else we are effectively, you know, out.
Yeah, totally. And sorry, to answer your question, Robbie, too. So EVM compatible just meant that we didn't have to change our contracts that much at all. We could essentially just bridge them over onto 𝗵𝗡, and I think that's one of the main reasons why so many Ethereum applications are deploying on 𝗵𝗡, just because, like, for something like SushiSwap, it's quite easy for them to deploy on 𝗵𝗡 very quickly, whereas something like Solana would require an entire rewrite.
Right, and that's the consideration that it seems like a lot of developers and I guess founders are making. You know, if you go and you choose to operate on Solana or Polkadot, these other L1s, and take the multi-chain approach, you're losing the Ethereum community. And you know, by staying with the EVM and then searching for L2 options, you're able to stay within the Ethereum community, and there doesn't take a lot of adjustment to the smart contracts in order to adjust for the scaling solution.
And one more thing I want to add over there, that, you know, especially for the and you know, let's, after like maybe this thing, we can spend some time on, like, what Polygon is and you know, like, and how is it different from the previously 𝗵𝗡 network, but specifically focusing about this you know, 𝗵𝗡 chain, where, let's say, SportX is currently deployed and using the network. That is what we call Polygon POS and Plasma network, right? So this network has a full-blown EVM, and this EVM has multiple applications now. So the composability factor, like, for example, SportX launched, and you know, their QuickSwap, for example, which is the fork of Uniswap on and I think QuickSwap also has some good pairs over there where they have, you know, fair enough liquidity, not as great as like what you would have on Ethereum, but you have you know, fairly decent amount of liquidity. So similarly, there can be multiple such applications where in future, let's say, SportX and other applications wanted to integrate with, they have that full composability. So you have, like, essentially like a Ethereum, like a microcosm of Ethereum running on top of it, right? So so that also helps a bit on the composability side also.
Now, there is another narrative circling around here around ETH 2.0, and what is the effect that proof of stake is going to have on some of the existing L2 solutions? Does it render them kind of, you know, irrelevant now that Ethereum 2.0 is staking, gas costs are reduced? Or are the L2s, you know, still holding value and providing value to the ecosystem?
Absolutely, yeah. That's a, you know, a very common question that keeps that comes from many people who are not very deep into the scaling, ecosystem. And fully understandable from the outside, it might look like, when ETH 2.0 comes in, what happens to the layer 2? So there are two things for that. One is, recently even Vitalik came up with a roadmap which says layer 2 centric ETH 2.0 roadmap, right? So that means that the next, according to this new vision, ETH 2.0 is not going to be having these executable shards. So by executable shards means, so originally the idea was that Ethereum will have 64 shards, and each shard will behave like the current Ethereum chain, right? Where you can execute the code. But then now the new vision of Ethereum is that ETH 2.0, these shards will be data availability chains. They will not have execution in themselves. They will only store the data, right? And then using that data, you can compute on layer 2 using a rollup, using multiple other things. So that's the new vision for ETH 2.0. So that new vision automatically says that Ethereum 2.0 is moving into a mode where layer 2 solutions will become more prominent, right? So it's actually reverse. It makes layer 2 solutions more prominent. The second part is,
yeah, because you still need the execution layer, and then Ethereum 2.0 is providing the data layer. Good.
Yeah. So current Ethereum, Ethereum 1.0 acts as both a data and execution layer. Later, in this new vision, it will become a data layer. And now let's assume that, and Ethereum is a very, that's the beauty and power of Ethereum, that it's a very decentralized network. Multiple people are building their competing implementations of Ethereum. So if, let's say, this vision, instead of this vision, the sharded vision comes in, and the original vision where these 64 shards will be executable chains, right? Just like the layer 1 current Ethereum chain is. Even if that happens, imagine that right now, just think about the gas fees today we have, right? Ideally, we would not want to have, let's say, 100x or $500 gas fees, right? So, I mean, in peak usage times, we already are at least 500 or 100 times more than a required. Even $5 is a very heavy gas price. Even $5 is a fairly heavy transaction price to pay. We generally pay on our Visa and all those in cents. But I'm saying, even if you see $5 or $2 was a decent enough cost, when you are paying $200, the network is already at 100x demand, right? So imagine these 64 shards also came in. They will provide 64x, scalability. I mean, some people might debate that, okay, POS will be there and it will provide some, let's say, 2x, scalability from the current system. So it can be 128x. Let's assume 158, right? But you can already see that we have not even started this whole journey where these NFTs are just like artists are coming into blockchain and various DeFi products are being built. We have not even started, and Ethereum is already experiencing 100x to 200x, times more demand. Imagine when all of these people start getting in, this demand is going to be higher. So the point I'm trying to make here is, even when ETH 2.0 comes in as a fully executable version and 64 shards come in, the moment you have more supply of these, let's say TPS, let's tell them, call them TPS, transaction per second, right? The moment you have more supply of these TPSs, your demand will go even higher than that. So eventually, again, Ethereum will, kind of evolve into a settlement layer, and then the business activity can stay on layer 2. And layer 2, that's the core vision of Polygon, that on the layer 2 also, as I said, that layer 2 also is a spectrum, right? So you start from the right, let's think of the left extreme, and left extreme as standalone, let's say where somebody is running their own chain and they only have a bridge. It is run by their own validators and things like that. And then on the right extreme, you can imagine that you have full-blown tightly coupled layer 2 chains, just like optimistic rollups and ZK rollups, because optimistic rollup and ZK rollups essentially submit their data and the proof of their states on Ethereum. So they are very tightly coupled on Ethereum. So these are the two extreme ends of the spectrum, right? So but the core vision of Polygon is that, it's not like all the people will either need the left extreme, all the solutions or all the applications will need either the left extreme or the right extreme. Everyone has their own requirement. That's why we built Polygon, that on top of Ethereum, there will be various different kinds of use cases. There will be various different kinds of businesses who would have their own scalability needs, and hence you need to provide the spectrum of solutions instead of one particular solution.
Yeah, and to just provide some clarity around what you mentioned about shards, right? And this is really a core aspect of ETH 2.0 is splitting the blockchain into these shards. And you mentioned there's going to be 64 of them, at least to start, unless that number changes. And then, it's about building bridges between these shards to allow transactions to flow between shards and, ultimately at the most efficient route possible between shards or inter-shard. In inter as well as intra-shard, so within one. And that lends itself to these different bridges that can act as the L2, right, between those shards, and you can pick the most efficient route that minimizes gas fees overall, and people can pick which shard they transact on. And it's interesting, right? Because at that point, what's the need for Solana? What's the need for Polkadot? Why do we take the multi-chain approach when Ethereum already has the community and has what seems like a viable plan for scalability?
Yep, absolutely. And then that's exactly what I was saying, that the network effects that Ethereum already has, in terms of the developers, not because what Andrew is saying is a very kind of is actually the ground reality, where the most of the developers, like I am also I've been a blockchain programmer, only now I'm into this marketing and other kind of things, business development and all. But when I joined blockchain industry, my first blockchain is Ethereum blockchain, and that is true for, like, I would say 99% of developers. They start blockchain by using Ethereum blockchain, right? It has become like so omnipresent that it is kind of your first ever blockchain, right? So, and then nobody wants to kind of, I mean, it's already it's not that easy. The learning curve is not that easy. Once you get into that, you don't really want to explore more. You want to build applications. As a developer, you want to build applications. So that kind of network effect gives Ethereum a big advantage over any other kind of layer one solution. And hence, like having like what I was saying, that Polygon's vision of having these EVM compatible chains around Ethereum, where the developers get the instant scalability. They deploy their application on maybe Ethereum. They immediately see that, okay, there's a more scalability requirement. They choose their layer 2 of choice, and then focus on the application building. Ideally, the developers should not be focused on how to scale the infra, right? They need to be focused on building good user experiences, and that's what is our goal, to make it so easy for the developers that they can simply focus on their users and making the user experience better.
Right. I saw a tweet the other day that the list of the most scarce things in crypto were 1 developers, 2 developers, 3 developers, and 99 just cash or VC funds or something. It's just funny to see. And I mean, it's really true. It's there's enough of us talking about stuff. There does need to be in a much more higher level amount and just of amount of knowledge as well. With regards to bringing people in and having them code and learn the language of programming. And I'm not sure that there's anything else out there other than the 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵𝗵 that will bring the majority of people who want to learn this stuff in, which is, I mean, kind of what we're seeing right now in the bull market with these NFTs and all sorts of stuff. It's been a bit of a stressor for the Ethereum community here in the last few weeks and months. There's been a talk of L2 for quite a while now, but really what seems to have pushed innovation and the topic to the forefront of Twitter, of the community, of forums, is just, as we've mentioned and as everybody knows, the absurd gas prices. So I'm kind of wondering what you both think is the next thing, if you will, to cause a serious amount of abrupt innovation, right? So we saw serious gas price increase, lack of user experience, people complaining, and now the community has, boom, there's the focus is L2 and scaling. I'm curious what you guys think is the next obstacle or the next important on the priority list as a community growing as a whole.
Yeah, I
Would
mean,
like to-
I can answer that if you want. Just as like being on the front lines of the application side. I would say honestly the biggest thing at this point is just education. So there's a huge education gap for people using like especially like layer 2 applications, so things built on Polygon, just because there's that extra level of complexity. But yeah, I would just really say there's a massive education gap, and I think that's part of the reason why something like NBA Top Shot has done so well, because they've kind of hidden the complexity of the crypto blockchain side away. So I think it's probably, I guess what I would try to say is the biggest obstacle is kind of this education gap and complexity, and maybe the solution is just better user experiences, and better wallets and stuff
And
like that.
I think that's what we're going to start to see is, and you mentioned probably the most prominent thing in people's eyes is the number go up, right? That gets people's attention. I mean, people notice when the price is going up, but then it's about capturing that attention and getting those people to engage. And to me, education is at the forefront of that, and it pertains specifically to developers. Andy and I met, and that was pretty much what we were talking about in this blockchain club is like prices, what we can do with it, how we're trading, that kind of thing. But now it's taken that next level. It's about implementing a curriculum into high schools, colleges, these different coding boot camps, and giving these people an opportunity, when they are first approaching learning how to code. It's not, oh, well, I want to write this program to make things more efficient. For whatever the reason, people are now coming into coding with the idea of, well, I want to learn how to code so that I can build on Ethereum. It's not, I know how to code, let me go find what to do with it. It's, I want to build on Ethereum, let me learn how to code. And that's going to hopefully, be ingrained into people's minds as a path forward and really progress the education gap.
Well, I think for young people, it's a bit of a brain twister to work for a protocol, if you will. There's a current gap in the idea of hierarchical company setups that has been revealed by the way tokenized protocols have been created, and it's a really interesting one to think about the fact that we're all on this call right now. We are all working on separate things. We have completely separate lives, and we all across the world. But effectively, we're all working for the same protocol. We're all working to see Ethereum grow, and honestly, on a greater scale, crypto, even other L1s grow, right? And so that kind of shift in mindset is crucial, I think.
Yeah, I think it takes decentralization, and kind of pointing it back to what Sandeep said earlier, where decentralization almost breeds collaboration rather than centralization, which more breeds competition. And I'm a firm believer in the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and I think the decentralization nature of the internet, and with blockchain in particular, is revolutionizing that concept and just pushing it harder than ever.
I want to talk about the valuation of Polygon and kind of how we got there with regards to other crypto assets or with regards to just tokens on the market. So where we're at with the current crypto market, especially in DeFi, is we're starting to have people try to create these kind of models for what's going on the token, right? So you've got the TVL, right? You've got the amount of holders, you've got the revenue, you've got all these things, and then you have NFTs, which are just, if so and so buys and says it's valuable, then it's valuable, and the value is in the narrative, it's in the community. So I'm curious briefly on the kind of the rebrand of Matic to Polygon, and then where we can look for the value metrics of Polygon. And then I'd like to also get into kind of what you guys both think about this maturity of the market, if you will.
Let's also explain our audience that what exactly why Polygon. from Matic Network. So when we were working with Matic Network, we started like 2.5 years back. We were a part of the Plasma Research Group, which was led by Vitalik and Joseph Foon. And at that point in time, we were a part of the Plasma implementation group. If we build the layer 2 only as a payment mechanism, nobody's going to use it, especially with the UTXOs and all that. And that's exactly what happened. So, 2 years back, we started building, started with a vision to build Plasma with EVM, compatibility. And, we kind of delivered our solution, which is a hybrid POS and Plasma solution, where you can choose between whether you wanted to build on Plasma, which is fully secured by Ethereum, or you want to build on top of POS, which is secured by the Matic validators, which are fairly decent sized in number. So that was the original goal, that to build one kind of solution. And then eventually, during our course of interacting with a lot of applications, we realized that there is no one solution fits all. And and then also, you must have seen that Ethereum community moved from narrative to narrative, right? So from state channel to Plasma to sidechain to optimistic rollups, ZK rollups, Starkware. So all of these cool things keep coming up. So we wanted to kind of create a long-lasting platform which offers most of these solutions. It is not dependent on one particular approach, and not because right now, again, in the layer 2, we don't believe that right now is the time to kind of only go deep or bet all in on one particular approach. Nobody really knows that which approach is really going to succeed eventually. So hence we created this, the vision of Polygon, because we stand very highly committed to Ethereum, ecosystem. So we wanted to build this multi-chain Ethereum ecosystem, which provides various flavors of these scalability on top of Ethereum. So, and then out of those, our first two solutions, which is like Polygon POS and the Polygon Plasma, which is the hybrid POS plus Plasma chain, is already getting a lot of adoption. I think we were just discussing that today also. A few big protocols like Ocean Protocol launched on Polygon, and then Bounty Block and all that. And every day you keep hearing bigger things coming on this. Especially on the NFT side, I think we are by far the leading solution in terms of on which third-party applications are building. Like for example, Flow is there, but then their primary application is being built by them only, right? So like the NBA Top Shot and all that. So for third-party developers, we remain the leading kind of solution. And you must have really recently seen Jack, the CEO of Twitter, tokenizing his first ever tweet, and then you must have seen Elon Musk tokenizing, this NFT, this song, like troll song about NFT, right? All of them are on Polygon. Those NFTs are hosted on Polygon only. So on the NFT and gaming side of things.
Yo, real quick, Sandeep. Let's dive into that real quick. So we are seeing NFTs on Polygon.
Yeah.
Right now. Cent is one of them.
And there are like multiple such solutions, like NFTs on the gaming side of thing, like all the bigger games. Like I can tell you that if you go to 10 different like large scale games, you will like the blockchain games, you will realize that 5 or 6 of them would already be building on Polygon, or the next 4 would be in the exploration phase or something like that, right? So NFT and gaming is like kind of the a huge amount of adoption is coming, and now we are seeing a lot of DeFi projects are also coming on our platform. And an Alpha Leak, like one of the top DeFi platforms or DeFi kind of protocols, is also soon is going to launch on Polygon. So like this chain is evolving into a kind of a microcosm of like kind of these composable applications together, which are running at a much faster, low cost transaction chain. And it's very interesting. And apart from that, we are already, like today in our community call, we kind of again gave one more alpha leak that we are going to launch our Polygon SDK, which will act as a substrate like engine, wherein you can actually create your own chains. Just like on Polkadot, but then you can those chains can be connected directly into Ethereum. So you can have standalone chains connected into Ethereum. Yeah. So that protocol also going live. So we already are seeing quite a lot of interest from projects to do that.
Right. And on that note, the clear thesis for the product of L2 is faster, better, just overall a cleaner experience, right? And the thesis for the application layer on Ethereum is, okay, if we build on Ethereum, we build Aave and Uniswap and SushiSwap and Compound and Alpha and all these on the main chain, then ETH has this application layer which gives ETH the asset, the token, a level of significance in terms of store of value, right? You've got all these applications on top of it that therefore the underlying blockchain has that much value on top of it. So is it fair to say that some of the value that is quote unquote held on the main chain is going to be transferred over to the 𝗵𝗵𝗃, I suppose, the protocol, and I guess we're talking token here. I'm trying to think valuation wise. I know that you probably can't chill the coin. I'm not asking, but what I'm asking is it fair to look at QuickSwap and say, okay, 100 million in value locked. Okay, therefore QuickSwap is built on top of 𝗵𝗵𝗃. So therefore 𝗵𝗵𝗃 as the protocol layer, which has the applications on top, is absorbing the value and the effectively the revenue that is created into the protocol as like that kind of as the same way ETH does for the applications on the main layer.
Yeah, you can totally say that, and it's like like for QuickSwap, for example, if you and see how it works in tandem with Ethereum. So let's say you wanted to do $100,000 or maybe $1 million trade, you would probably be better off doing that trade on Ethereum, right? And then if you wanted to, like for retail, but who's doing like $100, $200, $500 trades, they are doing it on QuickSwap on a platform like QuickSwap, SushiSwap, and all that. Why it is happening? Because for these people, swapping on Uniswap was completely ridiculous. Like it was too costly. But then they can do the same activity on QuickSwap. So so it works in tandem with Ethereum, that getting lot of these, like for example these NFTs or 𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗀𝗃 recently, like today only they tweeted that they had since the time they have launched, they have had I think 27,000 transactions or 267,000 transactions, and out of them they would have, if those transactions had happened on Ethereum, it would have costed the users around $14 million, but it's they hardly paid few dollars in in all those transactions. So the idea is because it's a retail centric, community centric project. So if you are building a whale, like big large institutional vendor players kind of product, or your large institutional investors, they can stay on Ethereum, but these whale or these retail can use the layer 2, and that's how it works in tandem. For example, NFT, again, a lot of people are minting these 1,000, like for example this tokenized tweet, which even 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗃 actually tokenized a particular tweet of his. They have around 200,000 tweets tokenized today. If that was done on Ethereum, again, like that would have.
It's like there's commerce that happens in Manhattan that doesn't need to happen in Indiana in the cornfields, and there's commerce that happens in the cornfields that don't need to happen in the metropolitan areas. It really is kind of that scale that you mentioned earlier on the ends of the spectrum, it brings to light the value of the 𝗵𝗵𝗃 protocol, the token, and everything that is. I'm curious what you kind of think about the token metrics of today, kind of getting towards the market maturity concept. We're seeing in DeFi, we have tokens that are actually doing things. We have workable tokens, we have workable projects, we have protocols that have a certain amount of value locked. And then there's also people that will just tell you that it's all speculation and that these metrics don't mean much. It is just a narrative-driven market, right? And there's people that live and die by doing analytics. I take it there's probably a happy medium here for our investors that are listening. But I'm curious to how you think about what a protocol is worth, what it's valued, what the token could be valued at. Speaking on a broad scale here, you can use examples if you like, but I'm curious how you frame your outlook on protocol valuations and token valuations when it comes to your analysis?
Yeah. So, I mean, let's start from the traditional markets on that. So in traditional markets, any asset you have, it has two factors which are contributing to its, current, let's say, stock price, right? So one is the fundamental analysis, like how much is the revenue, the EBITDA, and, like profit before taxes and, whatnot, like all those kind of mechanisms. And you have like analysts who create a base for that stock. And then on top of that, there is always a speculative value that, okay, like today Tesla is this, but tomorrow it can become this, right? So, there is the users attribute and speculative value on top of it. And it is very, very, very normal to have it. Of course, in stock markets also, like many people would say to you that even Tesla today, if you think about the fundamental value versus the speculative value, maybe the speculative part of the speculative percentage contributing to the net price of Tesla stock today would be higher than, or maybe much higher than the fundamental part, right? Because there's a hope that this will come big. So with crypto, definitely that percentage of speculation versus the fundamental price is much bigger than foundational for the traditional stocks. But but the reason behind that is because we are very, very early in this market. So definitely in these early markets you have a large amount of speculative angle into it. Now coming back to the Polygon's price or any POS network's price, let's understand the fundamental side of things, and then we can discuss about the speculative part of it, and which in total, in addition, comes to the current price of any particular asset. So the fundamental side of any proof of stake engine is very simple. It's basically about the demand of your token, that demand for your token in order to become a validator. Like, very simple answer is this: that imagine this Polygon network started generating $100 million or $10 million a year for the gas fees, right? And when I say $10 million, I don't mean that individual transactions will become costly, but because the scalability is like 7,200 transactions per second is the capability of the chain, which means like essentially probably around 400x of Ethereum, or Ethereum main chain. So even then the gas fees, if the chain becomes fully clogged, the gas fees can still remain somewhere between 100 to 1/200 of Ethereum, and still the larger number of transactions can come in. So imagine that the chain became fully occupied, and then chain started generating, let's say $10 million in gas fees every year now, right? Now, in order to get those $10 million, imagine that a normal validator considers 10% return, yearly return, as a good return. Okay, so then then you can imagine that people would be willing to stake. For a rational market, people will be willing to stake $100 million in the network, so that they can earn $10 million, which is a 10% return based on their stake. So that means that $100 million worth of tokens will be staked in the chain, right? And then assuming that like generally for a proof of stake network, 50% staking is the general is an acceptable amount that amount should be staked. You can double that to 200 million as the fundamental value of a particular POS chain network. So that's what contributes to the fundamental value of a network. Now, the speculative part is how big this can become, right? So, for example, with Polygon, people know that now you have this one chain which is getting insanely popular with hundreds and hundreds of applications building on top of it. Then, we are going to launch multiple other solutions like ZK rollups, optimistic rollups, these standalone chains with Polygon SDK, and multiple different data availability layers and all that. So all of that then starts contributing to its fundamental value. Multiple different chains which will have different token accrual, value accrual mechanisms, and then because these solutions will also be large in number, so the possibility of them, like for example standalone chains, we are already working with few large enterprises to offer some kind of solutions on that. So automatically you can see that both the fundamental value and as well as the speculative value, that how big it can be, gets added. So hence,
so we start with the demand for people wanting to effectively stake and validate the network to basically make the network more secure, how many people are willing to say, okay, not only do I want to own this token, I want to stake it, and basically, and on a next level, could be locking it up.
Earn the gas fees. That's the fundamental. You want to earn the gas fees. That's why you want to.
Okay. Right. Yes. To earn the fees from the protocol. Correct. So there is an incentive.
If let's say 10% is a reasonable return, and the network is generating $10 million in gas fees, then people would be willing to stake $100 million. And
right.
Assuming that 50% of the stake is a good amount of, or a matured kind of stake, then that means that the total network will be valued at 200 million in such a scenario. That's what I want.
Right.
Yeah. Sandeep, sorry to cut in real quick. I'm kind of curious what your vision, because I remember when we were initially talking about moving SportX to 𝗵𝗵𝗏. I'm curious what you think of like compound chain and this whole idea of app specific chains, and how that kind of fits into this aggregation, like Polygon's aggregation of layer 2s.
And valuation thesis, like how do you value compound chain, as well, if it's on its own chain? But yeah, please.
Yeah. So I think in blockchains, the composability is a very, very important factor, right? So we many times when we have discussed about these app chains, and even when the best of the kind of architectures which can have multi-chain architectures, like each app has their own kind of chain. It's like, first, the interaction between two applications in such chains will always be asynchronous, and once it is asynchronous, nobody really fully understands that how composable this will be, what are the kind of limitations, what will be the limitations in such kind of scenarios and all that. So we believe, our thesis is that we believe that there will be two kinds of application, like largely. One will be the kind of applications which would want to be on a more composable chain, like what we have on Polygon POS, more composable and scalable chain like this. And then there will be more solutions, let's say from enterprises who would want, let's say if Reddit wanted to launch their own, let's say this thing, I would think that they should have their own chain where they're pointing this kind of reward system, point system is running on that particular chain, and then those chains are then bridged with the other chains where people can bring those assets and securely bring those assets and trade against if they wanted to. But then they would not want to be dependent on the large load of some other application. Imagine one good day, like you have Super Bowl event and SportX is having 100,000 transactions in a single day, and then Reddit is down due to that, right? So that's the problem with the composability also, that you get affected because it's a shared hosting. Basically, it's a shared hosting. So right now there are no perfect composability solutions, multi-chain composability solutions. Although Dfinity recently came up with a good cryptographic breakthrough. Although, in cryptography, you have to test things for multiple years before they become less risky and you can fully rely on them. But again, there might be such solutions. Today, there are, for interchain communications, there are not that many solutions. So for us, Andrew, we believe that we will keep supporting two different kinds of chains. One would be this Polygon POS chain, which will, or people what we call shared chains, where multiple applications can live together. And then apart from that, offering something like Polygon SDK with various different kind of privacy features and whatnot, wherein the enterprises can pick and choose according to their solutions. And then of course layer 2 chains, where some of the teams, or maybe these current POS chains can be layer 2 secured and all that. But then again, for example, layer 2, when we say optimistic rollups, since they are going to commit all the data into Ethereum, they are still going to be costly. So of course your gas fees might not be $400, $500, but it will still be $5, $10 kind of gas fees, right? Maybe something in a few dollars kind of gas fees. So the applications will be choosing that whether they want to be on a optimistic rollup where the gas fees will still be higher, but then some of the teams can choose that, okay, I'm fine with people paying $2, $3, $5 in gas fees, or they want to be in a chain where the gas fees in a few in sub cents kind of situation. Coming back to this, like once we believe that these different kind of chains will exist, some of them shared chains, some of them independent. The intercommunication between chains becomes very important. So the intercommunication can be 2-3 different kinds of intercommunication. One is a simple bridging communication. Like Andrew, you might already, I think your team is also exploring Connects network. Also, right? Connects network, which is a interchain, like fast exit kind of scenario, or a chain connectivity where assets can move in between. So that's the that's the first kind of connection. The second kind of connection is IBC, like inter-blockchain communication kind of connections, where on a slightly more protocol level, the interchain communication is happening, and that is something that is currently ongoing as an ongoing effort from our side, and we are going to disclose more details on that front in some time. But yeah, like currently we are already live with the Connects network on multiple this thing. So this asset swapping between multiple multiple chains will already be available, and eventually we will also bring in the interchain communication like IBC on this Polygon network on top of Ethereum.
Yeah, it's super cool how you're equating the layer 2 demand and the analytical approach that we use to measure that demand, right? And that's what we're pointing to as a fundamental price, or the components of a fundamental price. And then we have this other world where it's the speculative nature, and it's the speculative price, and it's made up of those almost imaginary components where they're more just possibilities that could happen, and those are also a part of what builds a valuation, even though those aspects aren't realized quite yet. And as you were flushing out that thesis, I kept thinking about the efficient market hypothesis, and how there's a huge information gap, which we talked about earlier, and we talked about the education gap that's happening in crypto. And it almost seems to me that the gap between the current price, or the current valuation, which is made up of both those two components, the fundamental and the speculative, is, or can be equated to that information gap that we see in the market, where there's a separation on what people agree as the future of this protocol, or the future valuation that this protocol could bring to a community, and how that gap is translated into a value between the fundamental and the speculative price. And kind of as we see education continuing to grow, more people are educated, more people have that information, and it's not such a steep learning curve, then we start to see a more efficient market. That market is going to mature, like Andy said, and ultimately we reach a price that is more indicative of a fundamental value of what that blockchain or those projects can actually bring to a community.
Yeah, I think, just to cut in real quick, I think one other thing is a lot of these applications now are actually generating significant revenues, at least for like looking at some of the DeFi projects. And there's actually a great site called tokenterminal.com that tracks price to sales ratios for these different projects. And like a lot of these projects actually look cheap on a price to sales ratio when you compare them to kind of like more mature old economy technology stocks. And so from that angle, obviously some projects are trading purely on the speculation part, but other projects are actually trading on like real solid fundamentals.
Real value, yeah, like actual, like there is a foundation for such and I wonder if protocol creators and owners, I suppose, all the developers, the team, and Sandeep, I'd love for you to chime in here. If you think about kind of the efficient market hypothesis based off what Robbie's saying, when it comes to these choices about chains, when it comes to what Andrew's saying about, okay, how many tokens do we want to emit, and price, and what's the revenue and all kind of things. Do you think about this kind of way to create value and speculation when it comes to your protocol, and specifically with the chains and the composability as well? Curious, like what you view as efficient? Like, is that how you kind of make your choices? Is it based off, okay, what's going to be efficient? What is the best for the community, in a speculative manner? Like, oh, let's get 𝗵𝗍 swap on Polygon and make some noise. And then also like, okay, how do we get our users to, actually have a great experience and make this market more efficient, right? Because there is a sort of I think it's like a common, there's like a tragedy of the commons, if you will, when it comes to creating kind of protocols and tokens and such. And I'm kind of rambling here, but the question remains: is efficient market hypothesis? How do you think of that when you're creating and making choices when it comes to, like Andrew's saying, price to sales ratio, or choices with new chains or new releases?
Yeah, so I think like from our side, from day zero, we have been very like razor focused on adoption. And although having bigger protocols like 𝗵𝗍 and some big names, definitely gives you some, crazy this thing and all that. But then if you go to our Twitter handle, you will see that, okay, like every few days there is some big protocol launching, but in between there are hundreds and hundreds, like not hundreds, but tens and tens of these smaller protocols are also launching. So, smaller applications launching and all that. So what we believe essentially from our side is to simply kind of focus on building or getting the adoption on our platform, and all of these things will take care. So I mean, if you were following Polygon's price, and Andrew can also vouch for that. So for a long time, our valuation was hardly like $200 million. Like even today, like people are saying that, okay, even this price, like it has a lot of room to grow and all that. But if you see, we were like at 2.5 cents, for quite some time, and all of this adoption stuff was happening in the kind of this thing. People like amazing teams like SportX, Polymarket, and all that building on Polygon and all that. And eventually, what happens is that the rationality comes into the market. So I would not say that our choices are directly affected by this. Definitely, having bigger brands gets like that signaling, to the other developers. But for us, like it's not about getting the signal to the investors to buy, because we feel that investors will come. If the adoption comes, investors will come. But when we are chasing the bigger kind of, when we chase bigger kind of accounts, the purpose is to kind of signal to the other developers that, okay, these big applications are moving on to Polygon, so maybe it's a good choice. Let me also explore, right? So and then speculative things automatically come if you are doing a good job. And in this market specifically, like I mean, I think you guys would also know that like a huge number of application and projects are like kind of a gray or scammy kind of area, right? So I mean, if you are doing good work in this community and consistently doing it, eventually the market, the speculative parts of things catch up the project.
That's right. And I mean, that's all part of the efficient market hypothesis at the end of the day. It's and I kind of wish that we saw it a little earlier. I still feel like there's a lot of garbage going on. I mean, the NFTs are great and all, but there's still a lot of projects in the top 50 that are like what are we doing here? But we'll leave that one for a different episode. This was an absolute pleasure. I have learned quite a bit, and I think we spoke on some stimulating topics. Thank you guys so much for coming out.
Yeah, this was awesome. Super interesting. I felt like I learned a lot.
Thanks a lot, Andy and Robert, for setting it up and having me here.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for listening to the DeFi by Design podcast. Until next time, DeFi Slate Team.